If your favorite romances are dark, addictive, and just a little bit dangerous, let me recommend The Dare by New York Times bestselling author Harley LaRue.
This viral novella serves as the perfect introduction to Harley's bestselling Losers universe. Jessica was the untouchable prom queen. Manson was the outcast she made sure everyone feared. Years later, one Halloween party, one game of Drink or Dare, and one impossible challenge forced them into a night that changes everything they thought they knew about each other.
If you love bully romances, enemies to lover tension, morally complicated characters, queer representation, and stories that aren't afraid to explore the darker side of desire and devotion, this one's for you.
This gorgeous new edition also includes a full gold foil cover and an exclusive bonus novella, Ghosted, available in print for the very first time. Fun fact, The Dare became infamous after Amazon temporarily banned it for being too sexy, helping cement Harley LaRue as one of dark romance's most talked about voices.
The Dare by Harley LaRue, available now wherever books are sold.
People keep asking what's the next book they need to read, and the answer is very simple. It's Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick.
In a world created for the descendants of gods, where the Fae are born to serve, a woman bound to the air of death fights fate and desire. Storm of Secrets and Sorrow is book 2 of the best-selling book talk sensation, a contemporary dark romantasy legacy series for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Kaylee Smith, and Rebecca Yarros.
The second I knew that this book had me was when I realized it had gods, dragons, shifters, vampires, and witches. It has it all for you.
It even has my favorite tropes like morally gray characters, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her or him and die, one bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits, like you can't go wrong.
And everyone knows that it is fantastic because the first book was independently published back in 2023, and the series was a #1 Amazon bestseller with nearly 40,000 Goodread reviews and 16,000 Amazon reviews as of 2025. So you know it's grown even more.
And when it was published traditionally, it was an instant New York Times bestseller.
Make sure you get your copy today of Storms of Secrets and Sorrow. It has an incredible deluxe special edition with stenciled edges, a beautiful foil-stamped hardcover, exclusive design with illustrated end papers, and full-color character art.
You can find Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
I recently discovered 11 Reader because a fun fact about me that a lot of people don't know is that I have a reading disability. I have always struggled with reading and concentration, and when it comes to things like PDFs or things that I really need to focus on, 11 Reader has really come in handy.
The fact that I can upload my own content, I have so many business memos I have to read every day.
And then it reads it to you, and you get to choose the voice that reads it to you. You get to have a British accent reading those documents to you.
And I just retain so much more.
I really love the voices. Having a British accent whisper sweet nothings about legal documents to me keeps me going.
Start free with 10 hours of your own content per month. And that's essentially a 400-page book turned into audio for free.
Upgrade to Ultra for $11 a month and unlock unlimited uploads plus 20 hours of premium audiobooks every month. No credits, no commitments. It's really the ultimate listening app when you can't get enough. Being able to retain information is really hard for me when I'm reading certain difficult documents. And I really can't emphasize enough to you guys how much 11 Reader has helped me review so many things for the podcast.
Whether you're writing your own book, you have a lot of documents to go through, or you want to listen to audiobooks, choose 11 Reader and use promo code podcast to get your first 2 months for only $1. Bryce and Nesta navigate the ancient tunnels beneath the Court of Nightmares. On their trek, they encounter a Midgard worm and discover mysterious carvings that hint at the history of the Dusk Court. In Midgard, Ethan and company find uneasy refuge with the Viper Queen, where they reunite with Therion. Lidia tests the honor of Ithris, Queen of the Fire Sprites, and begins recruiting Ruhn's friends to help break Hunt and Ruhn out of the Asteri's dungeons, where the two men and Baxian continue to endure relentless torture.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. your book besties who take the novels you love seriously. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up book talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books treated with the same respect you'd give a classic in literature class, just with more humor and less homework.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through multiple literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow, the third book in the Crescent City series. In this episode, we cover chapters 5 through 12. Despite what we said at the end of last week's episode, I input it incorrectly. And we said 5 through 11, and that will haunt me.
Did we?
Yeah, it's my fault.
Oh my
it's
God.
my fault.
There's going to be that one person who took notes up to 11 and then didn't know that it was 12, and they're just sitting here, and at least I'm happy they know not to blame me. So that's For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, please be sure to visit our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Spilt. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
This episode covers House of Flame and Shadow with full context from the preceding books in the Crescent City series, Earth and Blood, Sky and Breath. If you haven't read those, this is your only spoiler warning. We also talk about ACOTAR. We're going to talk about secret chapters. We're going to talk about Nesta and Cassian and Azriel and everything. The other series, though, we will not discuss that, but anything in the larger SJM universe will be saved for the Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode that airs tomorrow.
Perspective and interpretation. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We don't speak for Sarah J. Maas, even though we might like to, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We love to hear them, so share away.
Language. We use explicit language, so do what you need to do to protect yourself, your innocence, and any sensitive ears.
Themes. We will discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use a submission form on our website. And if you want exclusive content and live streams, you'll find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk. I was just thinking about the explicit language. And granted, I don't listen to the other podcasts who cover these books as well. I've done the occasional episodes. That's not because we don't like them. They're all lovely. It's more because when you have a podcast, you don't have time to listen to other podcasts. All that to say is when I have occasionally listened to them, none of them are as explicit or disgusting as us. So I just find that we have a great range, because they also don't have, like master's degrees talking about it. So we really get the range for you here, guys.
There's something for everybody in our show.
Sound smart, and then next thing you know, we are discussing the most disgusting things possible. So
there's a lot of that this week.
Is there?
There will be when I get to it.
Shit. Okay, let's go.
Each week we ask ourselves a question. This week we're asking, all of our characters are struggling or they're in terrible situations right now. Out of all of them, which has SJM made us personally sympathize with most and least?
Themes we see in this section include doubt and cracking facades. Here's your episode weekly update. Mom's still in the hospital. She's doing well. PT is going well. Send good vibes. So, again, you still have to be nice to us until she's out. And then you can be harsh. Okay, so we are in chapter 5. And just to give a little context of where we're at in this book, Sabine and the wolves have cornered the bros and Sigrid, and Ethan, I believe, or someone shot her in the face. And then the Viper Queen shows up and she was like, down there, puppy, or something like that. And then we go to Lidia. There's nothing to cover here, but we just, we're keeping you on track.
Thank you for doing that because I did not. I want to start my notes this week referencing back to something I discussed in last week's episode, and that is the idea of masks and the identity of the individuals beneath the mask. In episode 1, I discussed this in the context of Hunt and Lidia, specifically their masks as the Umbra Mortis and the Hind, respectively. These two ultimately, at one point or another, struggle with their goodness or their worthiness because they feel like the blood on their hands is too great. There's no amount of atoning that they can do to be a good person again. Now, I do think that this mindset should be no surprise to us because let's look at the Asteri. Lidia observes Rigelus as, quote, the teenage fey body that masked the immortal monster beneath. If the Asteri are these innocent-looking fey or other beings, and that's their mask to hide the monster, who's to say Hunt and Lidia are no different with their masks, right? Yes, their masks are not symbols of innocence. It's the exact opposite. But what I think they fundamentally struggle with is they see themselves as being exactly like the Asteri, wearing one mask for one purpose and therefore hiding something underneath. It doesn't matter that they have good intentions. They feel like they are no better than the Asteri.
Lidia is an absolute possession of the Asteri, and it's really sad, but also great in the sense of like character arcs and development. Quote, she became that person again as Rigelus laid a hand on the door. The lead glowed and the door swung open. I think she needs to lean into being owned sometimes, not just because she needs to go along with things and to be like, yes, I'm your prisoner, or like, I'm loyal to you. But I think that this is one of those just moments where we can see that they're trying to prove a point that they own her and she needs to let them own her. Otherwise, she would own her actions completely. Even though I feel like she does own her actions, but it's just like that little bit of saving grace. So I don't think she fights it for many reasons. Even the nature and surroundings of this moment shows how contained she is. Quote, the oppressive heat and humidity of this place hasn't changed since that first visit. As Lidia stepped inside after Rigelus, it once again pushed the damp fingers on her neck, her face. It feels like the air itself is suppressing her just as much as the Asteri and Rigelus. Lidia and Rigelus go to see Erithus. Quote, the hall stretched ahead, the 1,000 sunken tubs in the stone floor shining with pale light that illuminated the bodies floating within. Masks and tubes and machines hummed and hissed. Salt crusted the stones beneath the tanks, some sections piled thick with it. So before, we've talked a lot in past seasons about how baths are usually, and we talked about last episode, baths are usually a great way of showing like baptismal cleansing type of situation. And this is another instance of that, but not really. It's tainting it. It's really gross. It's dirty. Nothing's being cleansed. It's just a poisoning, the whole sanctity of baths. And more examples of possession. Rigelus says, quote, my hind has a request of you. My hind. Lidia ignored the possession in the words, the way they raked down her very soul. Again, she continues to show us the loss of her ownership. And the more Rigelus does it, the more it's a reminder to her who owns her, which is unfortunate because he does it all the time. So she's constantly reminded.
Yeah, I mean, she's an asset to him. So the last thing he wants is to forget that he holds her leash. Now, I've already compared Lidia and Hunt today, and I mentioned last week that they're a mirror for one another. I now want to add another layer of metaphor on top of that. So I'm going to start with this quote. Erithus glanced down at herself as if she could see the small band of tattoos around her throat, a halo of sorts inked on the Sprite Queen by an imperial hag to keep her power in check. Erithus, in my opinion, who is the queen of the fire sprites, is both metaphor and juxtaposition for Lidia, and you could argue by extension Hunt. Now, literal metaphor because if you've read this book, you know Lidia has fire magic inside her, so she should feel akin to the Queen of the Fire Sprites on an elemental basis. But also, Erithus is bound by the halo. Like last week, we discussed Lidia is bound by her silver torque. Both are possessed by the Asteri. The difference between them, though, is that Erithus is bound by force. She didn't get a choice in becoming the next queen of the fire sprites. She didn't get a choice in being given the halo. Lidia, on the other hand, did choose this willingly, possibly ignorantly or not ignorantly as a, young fae. Hence why there are going to be times where Erithus juxtaposes Lidia. That juxtaposition is emphasized later when we talk about Erithis' honor, which I will save for when we get to that point in the chapter.
And we know that, like, it's Lidia loosely chose this. Like, she didn't choose this. She was set up for it. But,
yeah,
you know, I think if you want to get into semantics, there were times where she could have left, you know, like when she had the twins.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping in because I know someone's going to be like, she didn't choose it. And we're like, yeah, she didn't choose it. But it's like, she didn't not choose it the way that Erithis didn't choose it.
Exactly. There is some level of her who was glad to join the Asteri when she first joined.
Yeah.
And in that way, that is a difference between her and Erithis.
And keep in mind, Lidia, and I love Lidia, she is probably one of my favorite characters out of all of SJM characters. I'm not saying that she was on board, but she didn't change her tune until the boys were born. So, you know, there were plenty of years prior to that.
Yep. We will not discuss the plot tool of motherhood as a means of saving women until we get there. We're not there yet.
Yep.
But it hurts my soul sometimes. All right. We're moving back to Ethan and company because there are just too many of them. But let's, as a quick reminder, Ethan, Flynn, Declan, Mark, the fire sprites, Sigrid. It's a lot of them. They find safe harbor, quote unquote safe harbor, or refuge with the Viper Queen. And in the process, they come across Therian, who is still high off his ass because he just consumed venom. When they show up, Therian thinks to himself, quote, he'd thrown all this away, any shot at a normal life. And now his friends were here, seeing him like this. Therian closed his eyes once more, this time because he couldn't stand the sight of his friends, couldn't stand the worry and pity in Holstrom's eyes as the wolf took in his sorry state. Captain whatever, more like Captain Worthless. Therian experiences a lot of shame in being witnessed while he's high. And I want to argue that that shame is its own form of control through the Marxist lens. And I think, quite frankly, the Viper Queen is counting on that. And if I'm right, that makes her venom doubly potent because the venom not only controls Therian on a physical mental state, right? He doesn't have his faculties about him, but now it's also on an emotional level. Even if Therian wanted to break his physical addiction, if you can be addicted in a couple of days, if he wanted to break the physical addiction, he would also have to overcome his own shame. And I don't know if he's capable of that emotionally in this state. And quite frankly, would he even think about it if Ethan hadn't come for him and demanded that he leave? Another question to ponder.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to introduce this addiction aspect and to let it go so quickly.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think that it could have been done potentially with just like he's leaning on it and not made it seem like an addiction. Because I think that there's just been one too many key words to make it seem more like he's addicted versus it's a vice that he's choosing.
It does make me question whether he was written to have an addiction at one point and it was removed.
Yeah.
Because there was too much going on. Moving on, because that is the book we're in, we are back in Prythian with Bryce. And Bryce, I could die here, but let's get more risky for the plot. Quinlan winnows down into the pit of Sobek-like creatures.
You did. That one I'll give you.
Thank you.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Better than ambulance. I don't even remember.
Somebody
call an ambulance. Yeah, I just remember that.
Don't even remember that.
This one you get. Good job.
Thank you. Unlike other people who are struggling with their identity, throughout this sequence, we do get this sense of Bryce becoming increasingly settled into her identity. And what do I mean? When she was down or teleports down into the chamber with the Sobek-like creatures, they see her light, they don't attack her, and it feels like destiny. It feels like this is part of her royal heritage. And as she's walking toward the gate at the back of the pit, she thinks, quote, Ruhn had called her a queen before she left. And for the first time in her life, as she walked through that sea of death, she might have lifted her chin a bit higher, might have felt a mantle settle on her shoulders, a train of starlight in her wake, might have felt something like a crown settle upon her head, guiding her into the dark. Now, I'm not going to question the validity of this sentiment, I think there's a lot being implied here by SJM. But what I think is important for us to take note of is that Bryce is starting to think of herself more and more in terms of her heritage and title on the Fae side. And that's something she's resisted for 2 books. It's important, though, that she's stepping into it, that she's starting to take on that mantle, because it's all foreshadowing for what happens to her father or her sire and how she unites the Fae.
I also really like that her and Hunt are both dealing with different types of crowns right now. And both are burdens. And while she can lift her head and she's almost stepping into her crown, in many ways, Hunt should be doing the same thing because he has full control over that crown. We learned that it's Hell's crown, I believe. They're both dealing with crowns that can easily be removed. It's entirely their choice.
Yeah, and Hunt wants his removed, but isn't doing the work to remove it. Well, Bryce is learning to accept it.
And so that she could remove it later.
Yeah, so that she can remove it later.
True, and when she does, she's like, oh, look at that. All done now. I don't need it.
I'm weaponizing it now so that I can get rid of it later.
I think this was one of those times where I feel like a lot of times the FMC or any main character will act rashly, early on. And then you're just like, but why aren't you using this title to your advantage until I'm thinking about Quicksilver right now, where it's why aren't you using this tool that you have to your advantage? Bryce uses it to her advantage, and once it's been thoroughly used, then she'll drop it.
Yeah.
Bryce needs to hype herself in order to keep moving, so she thinks of the Asteri, quote, and something had to change. The cycle had to stop now, but not if it began anew with another overlord. And if Rhysand did indeed have that much power, she doubted these interrogations would continue so peacefully for much longer. I think that this is a lot of messaging from SJM to us, the reader. I think SJM, I said it last week, I'm going to continue to say it, a lot of the conversation surrounding the Asteri and how people either sit back and let the Asteri happen or question the Asteri can very much be replaced from Asteri with government. So I will be referencing that a lot. Bryce also remembers Danica in order to make that jump. Quote, Danica had jumped down into the depths of the drop with Bryce, knowing there'd be no return trip for her. And another point I made last week was that the female characters tend to help other female characters in order to progress their story. Yes, Danica died in order for Bryce and the whole plot to move along. However, not mad about it. To me, I'm like, that's just part of the plot, not necessarily another woman died, type of a thing.
Yeah.
Not like Sigrid. And this is just, I'm like, even Danica did it to the end of helping other women.
Yeah. Now, if you don't have Whiplash yet, let's go back to Tharian and Ethan. But this time, we're seeing things from Ethan's point of view. Despite wanting to help Tharian, Ethan gets his good intentions thrown back in his face. Ethan tries to tell Tharian, quote, you should have come to me. For what? Tharian's laugh was as dead as his voice. You're a defector too. We're packless wolves. This solidifies in my mind what I discussed last week, which is Ethan sees himself in Tharian. And if Ethan can help Tharian, then in theory, there's hope for Ethan as well, because Ethan also needs help. They both are defectors. They both are packless. They're both struggling with that identity as defectors. And so if Ethan reaches a hand out to Tharian, that hopefully karma comes back and someone will pay it forward and help Ethan as well. Tharian, though, resists. And on some level, I think he sees what Ethan is trying to do. Like, dude, you can't save yourself by trying to save me. And I actually appreciate Tharian's lack of interest in Ethan's brand of help. Because I don't think it's very helpful.
Ethan's a bitch. No, I take it back because bitches, I love the word bitch, though. That's unfortunate. Try not to use women as insults. Ethan sucks. There we go. That's all I got.
Yeah.
What keeps me going with this chapter, it's so annoying. For whatever reason, this chapter in particular goes back and forth between all the characters, and I personally don't like that as much. That's a writing preference. But what keeps me going in this book and in this chapter, in this series really, is anytime someone makes fun of Ethan. Quote, lead on, O great sunball captain, Flynn intoned with a mocking solemnity. Anytime that we can humble Ethan and remind him that he is inept, I am here for.
I agree. And I think Ethan, as a result, both of Tharian's lack of taking him seriously, as a result of Flynn's mocking of Ethan, I think he takes that frustration out on Sigrid. Let's look at Sigrid for a moment. Sigrid is rightfully freaking out. She's feeling trapped, right? The Viper Queen has brought them here and says, you can't leave. That equals trapped. And from a psychoanalytical lens, it makes sense that Sigrid is freaking out because she spent most of her life trapped in a tank, floating on water, unable to get out. She quite frankly doesn't want to feel that again, and this moment is triggering for her. Ethan tries to calm her down, and he says the necessary words. However, I feel like he struggles to have empathy for Sigrid. But it's not that he's without empathy, because he's perfectly capable of feeling empathy for the fire sprites. Quote, Sigrid closed her eyes, breathing shallowly, losing herself in panic. Ethan glanced across the room. The 3 fire sprites hadn't seemed too panicked, quiet, but focused, like they were accustomed to facing fear. It made his guts twist to think about it. So he doesn't say he's annoyed with Sigrid, but he isn't feeling empathetic towards Sigrid's panic, but he is feeling empathetic towards the sprites who are trying to manage their own fear that he is projecting, by the way. So maybe he sees himself in them more than he sees himself in Sigrid. When Sigrid says that she won't be able to sleep because of this feeling, Ethan snaps at her. He gets short. And quite frankly, I think this is an appropriate use of his inner alpha hole coming out because that is how he's acting. I do appreciate that Sigrid goes for his balls when she counters, referring to Therian, quote, is this a thing you do frequently? She asked suddenly. Liberate people, enslave to others? Yes, call him out for his savior complex. Now, I did have to stop and think, like, why does Ethan's savior complex bother me so much when there are plenty of characters, Bryce included, who feel an obligation to save other people? I think Bryce, having been an underdog most of her life, genuinely does care about others and doesn't want other people to suffer if she sees herself in them. Ethan, in my opinion, is selfish and self-serving. He helps people so that it gives him value. And that rubs me the wrong way.
Absolutely. 100%. His values based off of who he saves, which is why he can't save anyone because he is worth nothing.
It's also why he helps Bryce at the end of Earth and Blood saving the humans. Because, like, if you think about it, he's the first wolf to kind of defect and go help Bryce. He does it because he feels guilty for treating Bryce like shit, and therefore to make up for his shittiness and to bring himself value, he goes and helps Bryce. Not
just because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Not just because it's the right thing to do.
Like, if Bryce wasn't, like, doing this alone, would he have gone? And if the answer's no, then no, you're not the moral character that you think you are, Ethan. Bryce went out there regardless. Like, no one else needed to be out there.
Yeah.
He had to be pulled out there by his own guilt. And Sigrid has legitimate questions. And I don't think Ethan looks good when she asks these questions. And I don't think we're meant to see him in a good light. I think that the reason why we're ragging on him is exactly what SJM wants us to do. So Sigrid asks Ethan, quote, why didn't we leave immediately? When you took me out of the tank, Ethan stiffened. Because I didn't know where else to go. He failed his responsibilities. He failed her. He acted without anything, without a plan. And it put her more in danger. And if someone's like, yeah, but he got her out of there, and killed her.
Right.
She would have been aligned if he left her there and waited. If he had waited to figure out and have a game plan, I'm not saying forget about her, but have a game plan, she would still be alive.
Right. Instead, he just acted on impulse to make himself feel better.
Do you know who Ethan is? Indiana Jones and Raiders in the Lost Ark. Why? Because my roommates were watching it last night, and then I came in towards the end of it, and then they showed me something, and I was like, oh, you're right. Indiana Jones did absolutely nothing for the plot. The Nazis still would have found the treasure. They still would have opened it, and they still would have died. Like, Indiana Jones, take him out of the movie, and everything would have happened accordingly. He contributed absolutely nothing. Instead, he just put a woman in danger the whole time and had to keep, like, helping her and losing her and helping her and losing her. And it's just like, oh, wait a minute, you big, strong man who did nothing? Yeah.
And
who failed. Wow, he did nothing.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of men.
Yeah. It's just really funny where it's like when you're like, wow, so you provided nothing to this whole thing.
You were just a bystander.
Yeah, you actually failed in your mission. You didn't even succeed, and you put the woman in danger. Huh. And that's Ethan.
That is Ethan. That is a great point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to take a sip?
Yeah. My toe is being weird.
Hydrate for your toe. Maybe your nerves need more water.
My sister responded to our Instagram story and she says, I don't know what this means, but I want to be supportive. And then just engaging. I'm like, you're adorable.
That's hilarious. What story?
It's an Instagram story that has me raising my hand, and it says, raise your hand if Julie Soto has ever personally victimized you as a trivia host. And so my sister wrote back, I don't know what this means, but I'm supporting. And then she sent a hands up emoji.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I love her. A brief visit to the House of Wind. Don't go anywhere. I am trying to hit 10,000 steps a day and look cute and not have my back absolutely destroy me. And honestly, there's only one solution to this.
And that solution is Vionic shoes. I wear them every day to work so that I can walk on my walk pad looking professional, but the shoes also not look frumpy.
I mean, at this point, which Vionics do we not have? I am obsessed with my Walk Slim slide sneakers. I can walk forever in them. And then if I'm like, you know what? I'm not vibing a sneaker. Boom. I can hop over to my Amelita Mary Jane flats, and suddenly I'm like this timeless, cool girl fashion icon.
I get so many compliments on my City Walk sneakers from all age groups, and genuinely, they are so cute, and they're made with real suede.
The reason why we are so obsessed with our Vionics is because of Vionics' exclusive biomotion technology, and that's really what sets them apart. They began by revolutionizing medical orthotics. Today, they continue to use that science to engineer shoes that leave you feeling energized and confident all day.
They even offer a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them for a full refund within 30 days. I guarantee you'll know instantly that these are the shoes for you.
Use code BOOKTALK, that's BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK, at checkout for 15% off your entire order at VionicShoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only.
Vionic shoes, wearable well-being for your feet.
All right, so now we're in chapter 6, and Bryce is walking through the tunnels, and she gets tired. And then when she wakes up, Nesta's there. Quote, Nesta tossed a leather-wrapped canteen. Do yourself a favor and drink before you pass out again. Nesta and Bryce have an interesting relationship, and throughout this entire episode, and likely throughout this book, I will keep going back on whether they're mirrors of one another, and I am leaning towards no. But I am trying to figure out what's another word for what I think they are, and I don't have it yet. So Amy will help me. Not at this moment.
Not at this moment, but I do talk about Nesta and Bryce a lot in this chapter, so we'll figure it out together.
I think they're like mirrors of what potential. A mirror is a reflection of that character, right? So when we say certain characters are mirroring one another, they tend to mirror the same themes, the same imagery. Like there will be certain things that will mimic one another and reflect, aka mirroring. But Nesta and Bryce aren't that. Like they don't necessarily mimic. Their storylines aren't mimicking. Their characteristics and stuff are not mimicking one another, but they are helping, and it is a different type of growth and reflection. So yeah, you and I will figure it out. I'm sure there's some kind of literary word that you and I can't think of at this moment, but it's okay because my mom's in the hospital and we don't have to think about that word at this moment.
All right. So on the topic of Bryce and Nesta, but not about them specifically, I do want to acknowledge that Bryce is going to spend a lot of time thinking about, describing, and avoiding Nesta's sword, ataraxia. I'm not going to call it out every time it happens because there are a lot of them and you don't want me quoting every time, but I do want to discuss the purpose, and this might be something we come back to later, but for today, this is my only reference to the sword. Quote, the sword strapped down Nesta's back. It wasn't the star sword, though Bryce could have sworn there was something similar about the blade, a kind of presence, a tug toward it. Now, if the reader has read A Court of Silver Flames, and at this point, I think SJM assumes 99% of the readers have, then the reader knows Nesta made, capital M made, the sword, aka imbued it with some of her power. Now, Bryce's focus on the sword is natural, since the only sword of power is the star sword in her world, and she's never encountered another made object. It is also part of her focus because she's like, wow, I'm reacting to it just like the Star Sword and I are reacting. And this is all just strange. Like, what's going on? However, with all these descriptions, I'm wondering if the purpose is SJM trying to emphasize the importance of ataraxia and its future, possibly planting breadcrumbs for future ACOTAR books. Just putting that out there.
I think that in general, when it comes to Bryce and these swords, a lot of people tend to focus more on the fact that Bryce is called to Shadow Singer and, like it pulses.
Truth teller.
Truth teller, thank you. Shadow Singer is Azrael.
Azrael.
She's drawn to him too. But yeah, Truth teller. She's drawn to Truth teller. And there's a lot more detail on that. But I think that it's not, we have to know that it's not Bryce that's drawn to Truth teller. It's the whole magic and prophecy at work. And, yes, it's reacting to her and all of that. But Bryce herself, I feel like, is very drawn to Nesta and her sword. Granted, she can sense that it's made, she senses that it's different, but I feel like it's more of a consciousness versus a subconscious being drawn to power situation with Truth teller.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Now, to your point from earlier, like Nesta and Bryce, are they mirroring each other? Are they complementing each other? And not by saying like, your shoes are great, but as in like yin and yang, they fit together. They fill each other's gaps, which sounds sexual. Anyway, moving on.
I asked a guy on Bumble who likes to swim what's his favorite stroke. And then I wrote, can we both ignore how that sounds?
Yeah. Sometimes you have to anticipate the jokes.
Yeah.
And cut them off.
They're complementing one another.
And I say that because there's a little battle of wills and personality that go on between Nesta and Bryce here and later. And we can see it in the way that SJM writes about their interactions. Nesta tells Bryce to get up, and Bryce counters, well, you got to stop pointing your sword at me. Quote, their gazes clashed, but the sword moved a fraction. Bryce doesn't have a physical weapon on her, but her words and her actions have always been weapons. She's always weaponized them. And so their just eye contact is like weapons clashing against each other. But it's still not truly adversarial. I call this out because I do think Nesta and Bryce are going to spend a lot of time while they're together measuring each other up, sensing similarities, and trying to judge whether or not they are equals. I do want to point out that Bryce calls out this little fact, quote, Nesta sheathed the sword down her back with enviable grace. I don't think we've ever seen Bryce envious of somebody else's grace, not even Juniper's. And it's worth noting, partly because Nesta and Bryce both love to dance, both love music, and I think that is meant to, in some way, tie them together. Think of the secret chapter when Bryce gets her phone back and plays music. That's a secret chapter, right? Or is that in the book?
No. You know what? I think they do a little bit here. But either way, we're going to cover it, so it's all up for grabs.
We'll talk about it another time. Anyway, I just want to know they have similar interests.
Like you said, I think complementing one another is one of the best ways to describe it because they're not mirrors, but they are mirrors. But I feel like it's what both of them could be and almost want to be. I don't think they know what they're seeing when they look at one another. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that they're seeing wow, I want to be her. It's just what happens when you meet an equal who is a different type of strength that you actually respect.
I agree because with Nesta, she's friends with Gwyn and Emery because they accepted her at her lowest. But Nesta's not at her lowest anymore. And so it'll be interesting to see if she's capable and how she becomes capable of making friends.
Yeah.
And I like this idea of maybe if they were in the same world, there's potential there, but it's short-lived here.
Yeah. Taking a sip. We are in chapter 7 and we're back with Lidia and Erithus, and she is carrying her in a special little container. It made me think of a cat backpack. That's not what she's holding, but I like to imagine she's holding her in a cat backpack.
Like the one that you got me for my birthday in 2020.
Yeah, that we took your poor cat in once. I feel like Sobo might be into it.
Yeah,
I actually think he would. I mean, he's a million times heavier.
He panics anytime he leaves the apartment.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you scar him young?
When I stole him
From his home?
from his home and
his brothers and sisters and his mother. You kidnapped him.
Yeah. Yeah. It always reminds him of being a hostage.
It makes me think like scarring animals. Where Amy used to live, she was just like one floor above, and she and her cat liked to just kind of like, hover, look outside, but like we never thought that she would jump because there was like nothing to jump to. And then one day, I think your poor cat isn't the most visually understanding of distance of what she's capable of doing.
She lacks depth perception, 100%.
And before that, she would try to run out the hallway. She would try to dart out. She would, and then she fell off the balcony. And it was scary in the moment, but she landed in the bushes and like went sprinting down, got her, and she never tried to leave after that again.
Yeah, honestly, I had just basically moved into that apartment, and she liked to sit on the balcony ledge because there was enough of like a ledge for her to sit on.
Yeah.
And I caught her doing it at night because I would look out my window and I could see her on the balcony ledge from my window, and it would freak me out. Anyway, so I was napping and she misjudged her jump.
Yep.
And
I was
jumped
with you.
over.
Wasn't I?
No, you weren't.
She did it twice then. Because there was one time I was with you.
I FaceTimed you.
Well, maybe that's what I was. That is exactly what it was.
I FaceTimed you.
Yeah, you're right.
Just gotten Rowan and he didn't have his shots and I couldn't leave him behind and I couldn't let him walk on the ground. So I had to carry him with me.
Charm.
And run down to Dahlia, who luckily freaked out and just like froze and just stayed there. Anyway.
It's scary, but it just reminds me of like she never tried anything again. She was like, I am here. Yeah. All that to say is that Lydia's walking with a special container with Erithus. Quote, Lydia carried the crystal bubble containing the queen of the fire sprites. Lydia's carrying a caged woman. I mean, and think about what that means to her. She is a caged woman herself. And I think that this is powerful because she's physically holding this woman's cage and no one knows it, but she's also actively working on freeing them and like freeing her and freeing everyone. So I like that the one time we see her containing another woman, behind the scenes, she is actually working on freeing her.
She just can't be obvious about it. Or, let her in on the secret, unfortunately. Now, Lidia decides, without Rigelus's knowledge, she's going to test Erithus first before going straight to Hunt to torture information out of him. Quote, between one breath and the next, Lidia buried the part of her that begged to distant gods, the part that doubted. She became still and flat, expression as undisturbed as the surface of a forgotten forest pool. This is, in my mind, another parallel between Lidia and Hunt. They doubt the plan. They doubt themselves. Lidia just happens to have more control and doesn't outwardly display that doubt. She buries it because it doesn't serve her. She has to do it no matter what.
Also, I feel like there's some themes of potential religious trauma kind of related to her because Lidia is both begging these distant gods and the part that doubted, like there's still just kind of a balance there. And from what I remember of Lydia's past, there is a lot of devotee, like her having to be a devotee, like that's how she got pregnant, right? Is that she goes to this type of Kalamai, sacred fucking ceremony. And she was forced to do that. And that was the moment when she tried to get out, was when she realized that she was pregnant. So I think that there is a layer to Lidia that has religious trauma there, as well as the concept of struggling with faith. So Lydia's the best.
She is. She is. And there's a lot that is accomplished in her point of view without it being over the top in my mind, because when we meet the imperial hag Hildy, Lidia thinks of this other woman as, quote, a wretched, twisted creature, but one of hidden beauty. Where did that come from? Except for Lidia to project herself, right? There's nothing that's telling us anything about Hildy is beautiful. Not even Lidia herself is giving us information. So therefore, is she seeing herself?
I think so, because the only information we get is that she's a hag in the fullest sense of the word. Quote, she still wore her imperial uniform, the crest of the Republic frayed over her sagging breasts. the idea of sagging breasts and age, I actually really hate it when you have age being used as a way to describe like the evil women. Usually it's like, the hag or they're evil and their breasts are sagging. It's like, this is the scariest form of a woman is age, and I hate that happens because, people's boobs can sag at a very young age. All right. It has nothing to do with it. And also saggy boobs are beautiful boobs too. The hag tries to get under Lydia's skin, saying that she knew her mom and that she's nothing like her mom because it's like, I knew your mother, child. And then she's like, she's nothing like you. Quote, you're a born killer like any true witch. That girl on the throne is as soft-hearted as your mother. I mean, that's harsh. It's like, you're willing to kill. Your mother was nothing like you. But it's kind of a rejection of the feminine. But at the same time, the concept of the witches are amazing because they're also a rejection of the quote unquote feminine. I don't think it's too late to rebrand the feminine as being murderous. Just saying. It's never too late for a rebrand.
Yeah, I agree.
Women rise. All of a sudden, we get like sent to some kind of jury, be like, did you guys ask for the uprising of women to start
murdering people?
And then I'm going to be like, no. The irony of this is that I am wearing a shirt that says crows before bros support your local murder. Quite unfortunate.
All right. Like Lidia seeing herself in Hildy, I also believe Lidia sees herself in Erithis. When Erithis speaks to Hildy, who, by the way, put the halo on the Sprite Queen, quote, her voice was quiet with leashed rage. I think that is the perfect description of Lydia's rage toward the Asteri. It is leashed. They similarly possess and control Lidia. She wears a silver torque, just like Erithis wears the halo, but she cannot act on that rage. It is contained. And because it's leashed, Erithis does not act. This is a test. Lidia is testing Erithis when she removes the glass cage. Quote, Erithis didn't move, didn't try to run or erupt. She just stood there like a living, burning ruby. As if being free of the crystal after all these years, Lidia shut down the thought, her voice as dead as her eyes. I remember finding this moment really powerful because, like Jack was saying, Lidia is a caged woman carrying the cage of another woman. And it's hard to not assume Lidia seeing herself in this moment and wondering, A, if she'll ever be able to escape her situation, and B, what she'll do if she ever does. And I do think, like we saw earlier, she's doubting herself. Maybe she doubts her ability to actually survive escaping, her ability to attain freedom, and would she even know what to do with that freedom? It shows a level of emotion without naming the emotion. And we can tell in that description that Lidia recognizes the tragic nature of her circumstances, and Lidia feels kinship to that.
Yeah. It's so good that Lidia has such a stable and emotionally intelligent mate that will help her through all of this and not add any other stress.
No, not at all.
Or shoot her. Just wait till we talk about that. Just wait. It's not great. Also, more towards you, Amy, saying that Erithis and Lidia are like, mirrors. Erithis is often described as being ruby color. Another example is, quote, not pity, Erithis said, ruby flame darkening to a color of rich wine. And it reminds me of Lydia's ring, which is a ruby.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Now, Erithis has what Lidia does not appear to have. And this is what makes Erithis Lydia's juxtaposition. It is the fact that Erithis has honor. Quote, honor is all I have, Erithis said, the heat of her indigo flames strong enough to warm Lydia's chilled hands, or maybe her chilled heart. Honor and my name. I will not sully or yield to them, no matter what my enemy has done or what you threaten me with, Hind. I love this little act of rebellion because she thinks she's sticking it to Lidia. And the irony is this is exactly what Lidia wants. But it is still a slap in the face for Lidia because even though Lidia knows she's working behind the scenes, Erithis is calling Lidia out for the things that Lidia feels guilty about.
I think that honor is just a fancy way of saying haughty stubbornness. It's just a nicer way of being like, I have honor, you mean you are stubborn and you think you're better.
Watch me the next time you call me stubborn.
You're honorable.
You have honor.
That's the thing, right? Is that like honor is like it's being stubborn, and what we deem is being stubborn for a good cause. Right?
True.
And who's to
It's true.
decide what's a good cause?
Yeah. It's like my moral compass decides that this is honorable.
My moral compass has decided that I want to eat sushi, right? Like that's just me showing honor and then just being stubborn and doubling down. I don't double down. I just believe in honor.
Oh, I can't wait to use that.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm onto something there.
I think you are. I think
Honor's
you are.
just stubborn haughtiness. So yeah, I agree though. I think that especially in that little speech that she gives there, Erithus, it's everything Lidia wishes that she could be. It's everything she wishes she could say for herself. I think Lidia could be one of the most honorable people here. She just is not in a position to be stubborn because her boys are in danger. I think honor is something that is a mark of privilege because Erithus only has herself. She doesn't have anyone else. You don't get to have honor without privilege. And I think that this is a great example of why Ruhn sucks also because he's willing to let his friends die for his own stubbornness.
Yeah. Ugh. I know. I have so many conflicting feelings about that to discuss later. But I do think you make a good point in that honor can be selfish. Doing things in the name of honor can be selfish. And it is only, in a lot of ways, self-serving, kind of like Ethan, right? He would say it's the honorable thing to go help Therian. Honor implies an ability to choose. Not everybody has the capacity for choice in their circumstances. All right. Now we're back in Prythian with Bryce and Nesta. And when you have hours of walking in the dark that you need to do, I think naturally you're going to talk to something or someone. And in this case, Bryce and Nesta do ultimately end up talking. Bryce asks Nesta, quote, "Who'd you piss off to get sent to retrieve me anyway?" She could have sworn Nesta's lips curved into a smile. On a good day, too many people to count. But today I volunteered. I think this is a moment of connection and understanding between Bryce and Nesta. They are cut of the same cloth, as, you know, the saying goes. They see themselves in each other in a lot of ways, which means when Bryce freezes at the appearance of the Midgard worm and Nesta has to save Bryce, Nesta shows, quote, displeasure and something like disappointment at Bryce's apparent cowardice.
I love it because it's a new feeling for Bryce. It's a new feeling of even caring. The fact that she even points it out shows that there's, you know, some level of caring. If she pointed it out and just been like, I don't give a fuck, right? And then later on, she's going to think about it again. And it's not mirroring, but it's something. Also, I remember the dumbass thing that I was going to say earlier that has zero context for what it means now. And I don't know why I thought of it. But I was like, we were talking about Lidia and like her stoic, like she's so stoic and she's also very formal and in many ways is very old school because of how she was raised. And she's very formal, like with how she speaks to Flynn and everyone later and, you know, just having to do what needs to be done. And I was like, I was supposed to have a Bryce summer and I think I'm having a Lidia summer of doing what's the honorable right thing and everything. That's all. And that means I get Ruhn and I don't want a little bitch boy who'll eat his own fucking hand rather than deal with emotional conversations. All right.
He is emotionally constipated.
Look, one of us can only be constipated, okay? And it's me. But it's not emotional. Hot girls have tummy issues.
Now, I do think, like we've been saying, SJM is trying to signal that Bryce and Nesta, there's something there. There's something, whether it's them complimenting each other or there's some sort of sense of like, could we be friends? ? And that's emphasized when Nesta tells Bryce, quote, "If we encounter something that wants to eat us again," the warrior said, "don't stare at it like a startled deer. Either run or fight. Randall would like this female." The thought pained her. And that's Bryce thinking to herself. I have to know, Nesta uses deer to describe Bryce. Such an ACOTAR reference. Obviously, they're intentionally because everybody's a doe when they are not capable of fighting. But what I want to really focus on is the fact that Bryce thinks Randall, her stepdad, would like Nesta. This is the same guy who taught Bryce everything she knows about weapons and fighting, who she loves and respects, who gets her in ways that her mother does not, right? And Nesta, who she thinks of and sees as a warrior, if she qualifies to be liked like Randall, there's an implication that Nesta and Bryce must be similar. It's like math, but pseudo math. If Randall likes Bryce and Randall likes Nesta, therefore Bryce and Nesta must be the same, or at least similar in this case.
Yeah. One, I feel like I could have cracked Nesta. After Silver Flames Nesta, I think she'd be willing to be my friend. But I think it would be less than 30 minutes before I'd mentioned you. So my best friend, Amy. Okay, so I really want to discuss this aspect of Bryce kind of like letting down Nesta, and she froze. She sees the Midgard worm and she freezes. And we talked last week and we've talked in past seasons of how I don't think the Crescent City people would be our warriors. I don't think they would survive in these other worlds. And I think that this just proves it. And it's humbling for Bryce. Like, I think this is a moment where whether she wants to fully think about it or not, she's not cut for this world.
I think that's an excellent point, because I think it also is a reminder for us as readers that the Fae of Prythian are supernatural, right? They have abilities beyond what humans do, where in Crescent City, everyone seems kind of the same. So I do feel like SJM does a good job of being like, yeah, I recognize not anybody can do what Nesta's accomplished, but Nesta's supernatural, so it's okay, guys.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate.
Yeah. All right, take a sip. Time for a bargain with our sponsors. There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product, just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Drybar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FromRebel.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince that's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK. All right. Moving into chapter 8, we find Hunt, who is awake in the aftermath of his torture while Ruhn and Baxian sleep. Now, Hunt is left to his own thoughts, and because he has a lot of time to think, he begins to berate himself for not stopping Bryce, not convincing her to not go to the Eternal City, And quite frankly, for knowing better than to fuck with the Asteri, because he's been down this road before, he's failed once, so of course he would fail again. It's already very far from his utter love and faith in Bryce, because it's turned inward on himself. And he's the fuck up. And he is prone or victim to his own self-loathing. I do want to point out what happens right before his spiraling thoughts happen on the page. Quote, Hunt had lost feeling in his hands, his shoulders. The itching from his slowly regenerating wings continued, though, like streams of ants tickling down his spine. No writhing could help it. I like this little moment because that feeling of the numbness in his limbs, the itching in his wings, those are irritants he can't control and he can't relieve. And that's metaphorical for his mental state, that he's going to have these downward spiraling thoughts. And without intervention, he will not be able to help himself.
It sucks because Hunt is 100% valid in his mental spiral too. Quote, he should have known not to tangle with the archangels. With the Asteri, he should have warned Bryce more strongly, should have tried harder to get her to back down from this insane path. This isn't even like confirmation bias, like this is just confirming, because this is the second time he has failed. This is the second time that Hunt tried to fight back and lost and is now being tortured. I think that's what makes his struggle so special and so intense later on when he does get on board. Again, it's arguable if he ever really does versus is just kind of like forced to. But, you know, hopefully later I'll be like, oh no, he comes around to it again. But like, that's really impressive of him to even come around to it the second time, let alone a third time, because for him, fighting back equals losing the woman he loves and being tortured.
Yeah. I mean, you could even argue this is the third time because in Earth and Blood, with the whole synth thing, even though he tries to ultimately stop Victoria and Justin.
No, you're right.
He gets caught. He loses Bryce, you know, lots of things. So he has failed regularly. You know what? But he acknowledges his failure, and that I can appreciate.
But that's also why he's sitting here being like, this was all wrong. Like, we shouldn't be doing this. And so when Bryce comes back later, he's like, no, we're not fighting back.
Yeah, no, thank you.
We need to get the hell out of here. We need to figure out what to do. Take me back to Prythian. I mean, he didn't say that, but I feel like that should have been an option.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
We move back into the meat market, and Therian wakes up, and his bedroom smells like Ethan. And that is not meant to be sexual, but it sounds like it could be sexual.
It does.
What it tells me, other than the implication of sex, is A, Ethan was annoyed with Sigrid enough last night that he escaped to Therian's room so that he couldn't be bothered by her.
You're right. I don't like that.
B, Ethan feels safe with Therian instead of with Flynn and Deck, suggesting once again that Ethan sees himself in Therian. But mostly A. Mostly A. Like Sigrid the night before, though, Therian gives Ethan shit for his savior complex when they do encounter each other in the morning. Therian says to Ethan, I know you've got some sort of savior complex, Holstrom. Fuck you. You're my friend. You don't get to ignore the danger you're drowning in. How are they friends? Like, I don't remember the point where they became friends.
No. Also, Sky and Breath wasn't crazy long. Yeah, I don't know when they looked at each other like besties. But, you know, he's got a savior complex.
Yep.
Now, because I'm feeling spicy, I mean, I'm feeling spicy now, but I was feeling spicy when I wrote this. I'm just feeling some sort of way. So get ready for my tangent. Quote, you really do look like shit, Flynn drawled as Therian inhaled the aroma of the coffee. Ari, of course, looks gorgeous as always. Why is it that the men of this book comment on women all of the fucking time, particularly on when they look good? And I think that it's, you know, because they're complimenting on how they look, it's like meant to be a good thing, but it's always used in a way of antagonizing. Why mention Ari? There was no fucking reason to bring her into this. We're giving Therian shit. He's the one who walked into this room hungover. Why are you trying to piss her off? And if you're trying to piss her off, why are you trying to piss her off by using compliments? It's weaponized complimenting. And I think that this world does it much more than Throne of Glass or ACOTAR. That's not a spoiler. I'm just saying that I don't remember these characters just kind of throwing out the, you're looking really good. Hi, how you doing,
Legs.
legs? Yeah. And it's just like this weird type of misogynism that is special to this world because it's the one that reflects our world the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it is reflective of the way men treat women in our world. And yeah, it definitely rubs me the wrong way because it just backs up the misogyny that's thrown at Sigrid, even though it's a different brand of misogyny. It just shows like no woman is safe from it, regardless of, Flynn is trying to flirt with Ari, but is also weaponizing his attraction to her.
Well, how about the fact that we have Ari and Sigrid, who were both held captive by the astronomer, right? Who both got out. But because Ari uses her body, and she's using it now because she has to dress up and she has to fight, and she knows that she's attractive and she's a little bit more in control of herself, is this desired woman versus Sigrid. There has been zero comment on whether she's attractive, on anything on her body, which is weird because we keep talking about how beautiful everyone else is, but not Sigrid. And is that because Sigrid hasn't leaned into this sexuality, into her body, the way that Ari was able to lean into her own body right away? Granted, Sigrid was like captive a lot longer than Ari was, or maybe Ari was older when she became captive. Like, you have a very interesting dynamic where you have one that's respected and the other one that's not. And the one that's respected is sexualized. And the one who's not respected is not sexualized. Instead, she's killed.
Yeah, I mean, and that dichotomy feels very intentional because of how patronizing everybody is to Sigrid. She is truly treated like a child. So I'm grateful they don't sexualize her. However, how about we don't sexualize anybody who doesn't want to be sexualized?
Yes, please. And I say respect in the loosest term when it comes to Ari because they don't respect her. Because at one point, the guys start talking while Ari's just quiet. And then eventually she says something and, quote, the males blinked at her as if they'd indeed forgotten that the dragon sat in their midst. Mark's mouth tightened as he realized how much she'd heard. I really believe this is SJM calling out misogynistic bullshit. I don't think this is SJM playing into it. I think she knows exactly what she's doing. I think that this world is one of the most misogynistic worlds that she's written, and that's coming from other worlds where, like, Farah didn't have any rights because she was Tamlin's bride. Like, I know exactly what I'm saying. And I think part of the reason why I think this is the most misogynistic is because this is a world where women, quote unquote, have more rights than the other ones, right? But even then, they don't have rights here. So, but because it reflects our world the closest, I think that there's just a special brand to this that stings because it's so relatable.
And I do think it's SJM consciously doing it versus the opposite of SJM unconsciously doing it. I think it's conscious because I think SJM is trying to hold these men accountable. We're going to see it with Therian and Safia, Flynn's sister, later. We see it with the way Hunt treats Bryce. Like, we know she's capable of writing men who respect their women. It just happens to be that this little group of men are assholes.
I'm going to say a really broad statement that I have zero backing on this, but this is just me as a casual observer of the fandom. There's a reason why when you think about the Crescent City world, you really only have Hunt and Ruhn as the standouts. No one's sitting here thinking, oh my God, Therian's my internet boyfriend, right? Like, you might get some fan art of him, but no one's sitting here fantasizing about him the way that you do with Asriel,
Lucian.
Right?
Yeah.
Lucian, Helion. Eris?
Yeah.
You know, like, you have all these other male characters that are not anywhere near the focus, but there's so much more, the fandom is called, like, is really, big fans of them. I just feel like they're not as horribly misogynistic as some of these guys. Like, these guys are not meant to be a desirable bunch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, no shade to anybody. Genuinely, I say this with no shade to anybody. Tamlin has simps out there. Therian, I don't think, has any.
We'll find out. Yeah, we say one bad thing about Tamlin, and you would think that I have smited Christ's name himself. You know what I mean? Like, Amy says no insult or no offense. I mean every offense. It's just like, I don't mean offense. I mean to call it out as it is. The way that there are some people that are so feral without using an inch of general lies larger conversation ability. I don't know. I don't see that for Therian. You're right. I don't think anyone would come out here for us. But you know what? Maybe we'll post something and we'll find out. But I highly doubt it.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, the group is interrupted by the Viper Queen, who has a visitor, and she is like checking in on them before she goes and collects whatever poison she's collecting. Sigrid tries to demand that the Viper Queen let them all go, including Ariadne and Therian. The Viper Queen responds, quote, "Why would I do that? They bring in good business." She cut Therian a mocking smirk as she stalked for the door, headed to get whatever drugs her client down the hall wanted. When they're not blowing their load after a few minutes, Therian bristled, crossing his arms. So just to follow up on last week's conversation, so she did assault Therian. Like, I always interpreted this moment to be about his fights, which is, I think, a disguise for what she's actually talking about, which is she assaulted him and he came too fast.
I didn't even put that together till your note. Because, okay, because he finished the fight too soon. But it could go either way. But I think it's fair to say that, I think that the Viper Queen did assault him.
Yeah. Take a sip.
Take a sip. What a great transition. Take a sip.
We're now in chapter 9 because we're in the part of the episode where all the chapters are shorter. And it's Bryce's turn to be disappointed with Nesta. They're still in the tunnels. Bryce and Nesta, quote, pushed through the tunnel for hours. Tense silence filling the space between them again. Worse than before. It was typical, Bryce realized, of her interactions with the Fae she knew from her own world. She didn't know why it somehow disappointed her to realize it. Bryce wants to like Nesta. Bryce wants Nesta to like her. And she doesn't want to be wrong about Nesta and find out that Nesta, is like the Fae in Midgard.
But she's already condemning Nesta to be like the Fae in Midgard because she hasn't even tried to start a conversation. Like, it's not like, she threw a line out there and Nesta shut it down.
Right. Nesta is a woman of few words unless you piss her off, right? Bryce is using Nesta's natural proclivity for silence as confirmation bias of like, she must be as bad as the Fae in Midgard. Like, come on, Bryce, use your brain.
I would have mentioned you in the first 10 minutes, and within the first hour, I would have asked, are you mad at me?
Is that your face all the time? Cool? Or are you mad at me?
Because I thought we had something. I thought we were friends for a second, but are you mad at me? Because if you are, that's cool. I understand it. I'm mad at me too.
Just, could you tell me your rising and moon sign? Because maybe we're actually friend soulmates and you don't know it yet.
We just don't know. I just don't think we know yet until we know. So how do you find out? Well, first you need the internet because Lord, do I not know what I'm doing. What month were you born? Got it. Now I need the time and location. What does that do? Not a clue. Couldn't fucking tell you. So Bryce looks at the carvings on the walls. Quote, Bryce's stomach twisted as she noted that behind the supplicating Fae, chained humans lay prostrate on the earth, their crudely carved faces a sharp contrast to the otherworldly pristine beauty of the Fae. Another bit of fucked up artistry. Humans were little more than rock and dirt compared to the Fae and their godlike masters. Not even worth the effort of carving them. Present only for the Fae to lord their power over them, to crush the humans beneath their heels. I'm going to keep saying it. This is modern lessons, modern life, modern history. Art, history, everything is told by the victor and is going to make anyone else who's not them look bad, especially groups that they are hurting. If you look at some of the art and stories that were told of indigenous people in America as the colonizers were coming over, you'd hear these horror stories. Of course, you're going to hear these horror stories because they need to make it look like they're doing something okay by colonizing. You know what I mean? History and art is only told by the ones who want to look good. Just remember that.
And it's always shaped in a way so that the victor does look good and is justified, or it's their God-given right.
And that's just with all art form, even songs. The one that I'm thinking of the most that I think is the great highlight is Ed Sheeran's song, the one that's about Ellie Goulding. It's not like I was looking for a or commitment, but we said it was just fun, but I thought you were different. It's never too late, or to never be honest. We were staying on the same fucking hotel floor. Hold on. I know.
I can hear it.
Don't fuck with my head. She knows.
I don't listen to Ed Sheeran. I'm sorry.
On the hotel floor. She was crying on my shoulder. I don't even know her. Trust and respect is what we do this for. I never intended to be next. But okay, anyway, that whole entire song is Ed Sheeran talking about having a situationship with Ellie Goulding. And neither of them were even in a committed anything. Both of them were like, yeah, I don't really want anything. We're both on tour. And then she goes, and I think she sleeps with like Niall Horan or someone else from One Direction. And this entire song is about him being like, how fucking dare you? You are sleeping with other men, and I don't even care that we weren't anything, but I was like on the same hotel floor. Well, it's her fucking choice of whether she wants to or not. But that entire song is like really catchy, and it's easy to sing along to, and everyone loves it. But then when you actually think about it and you think about the lyrics, because it's told from his side, and it is, you know, history and art and music and everything is told from a very one-sided perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. So just remember that with anything you listen, read, watch, just be jaded.
Be conscious of who the author is, or, you know, who the perspective is from. No, just be jaded.
Trust nothing and no one. Just trust nothing and no one. Jackson, her dark era.
Who harmed you? Anyway, as Jack was saying, Bryce and Nesta have come across some tunnels on which the Fae are depicted in carvings. Bryce saves Nesta from setting off a trap, yada, yada, yada. At one point, Bryce asks if Rhys is Nesta's king. Nesta's reply is a smart little way for SJM to remind us Nesta is an unreliable narrator, in my opinion. It's just like the art, right? Bryce's only source of information about Rhys, other than her own interactions, is through Nesta, who is biased against Rhys. Even though they've made up, she's still biased. And again, is going to confirm Bryce's own bias.
We already know that Rhys doesn't want to be king.
Right. So the quote is, Nesta snorted, "He'd like to be king, but no, he's the High Lord of the Night Court. We know for a fact from A Court of Silver Flames that Rhys told Cassian, Azriel, and Amren he does not want to be High King. He wants nothing to do with it. Yet, from Nesta's point of view in this conversation, her opinion is that Rhys would like to be king. Nesta, as I mentioned, is the wrong person to give an objective opinion when it comes to Rhys. But it is also the only opinion Bryce is hearing about Rhys. So she's not going to trust Rhys anytime soon. This is not helping the situation.
No. All right, take a sip. We are in chapter 10, and Lidia is there, and the boys are in a tizzy because, like, she's with, you know, she was the one who was talking to the Viper Queen. She walks in, and the guys are like, oh my God. And then everyone pulls out their guns. Everyone's pulling out their claws, including big, strong man Ethan. Quote, Holstrom crouched, teeth bared, angled in front of Sigrid. Like, oh my God, he needs to step in front of her to protect her. I don't know. It's another moment where I'm just like, so do you like her? Do you not like her? Do you want to protect her, or do you want her to be your alpha? Like, I don't know what you're trying to do here, Ethan.
Right. He is so confused. He doesn't know how he feels about her at the end of the day. As Jack is saying, Therian, Ethan, and company are facing Lidia, who's like, don't do anything or Ruhn dies. And since there appear to be no other grown-ups in the room, Therian, despite, you know, still being hungover from his high, takes on the mantle of fearless leader. Quote, so Therian did what he did best, dragged up the smile of the person he'd once been. I think we can all agree facades and masks are a theme here, and even Therian is participating. It does feel curious to me that it's only been a couple days since the end of Sky and Breath, and yet Therian feels like he's so far removed from who he once was, which implies to me that it's more than just the venom talking, because he hasn't had that much and he's not actually showing signs of addiction.
For whatever reason, I would say Sigrid is the hill that Ethan is willing to die on, but in actuality, Sigrid is the hill that Ethan is willing for her to die on. Because when Lidia says that Sigrid needs to leave their conversation, quote, Holstrom growled, whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of her. Declan said quietly, Holstrom, maybe she can go join the dragon for a minute? What? Why are we doing this? Why do we have to be like, if you can say it in front of her, if you need to say it to me, say it to her. She has been part of this crew for 48 hours. She just learned what a shower is. And suddenly you're going to trust her with the deep secrets of rebellion. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing with this? Like, it's just like his relationship with Sigrid is the strangest thing ever.
Yeah, it really is. And this is just another moment of like, dude, do you want her to be your alpha? Or do you want to be the alpha? Like, what do you want from her? Because in some ways, he's like, again, he's being the parent to her child, saying, well, you can say it in front of her. But also, Sigrid doesn't know who the hell Ruhn is. Probably hasn't even heard his name, really. So why do you have to go to bat for her? Everything that's happening is patronizing. In my opinion, Holstrom cannot let go of the past. Ethan cannot let go of the past. He can't let go of his Sunball captain identity because no one allows him to. Can't let go of his feelings for Bryce. Can't let go of the fact that Danica was supposed to be the next prime. And so he's trying to recreate the past that couldn't be, almost as if it would bring back his brother.
It comes down to the fact that he lost his brother and he's a sad boy about it, understandably. And at the end of the day, Danica was supposed to be his brother's protector, his brother's leader, and a woman, an alpha that he looked up to, failed not just him, more importantly, his brother, because he died while with Danica and all of them hanging out. He died because of Danica's bullshit, because of Danica looking for an answer of what was going on, right? An alpha woman failed his brother, therefore Ethan needs to fail an alpha woman somewhere because Tharion is his brother. Like, if Tharion is the replacement of his brother, then Sigrid is the replacement of Danica, and he needs to punish Sigrid in order to save Tharion.
It's such a good point. It's so true, because that's exactly what happens. Now, Ethan is not the only one guilty of patronizing Sigrid. A lot of the men in this group do. Now, rightfully, Lidia, not knowing who Sigrid is asking for a moment of privacy with Ruhn's friends so that she can give them intel. As Jack mentioned, Ethan resists. Deck pleads for Lidia to leave. Tharion, trying to be helpful, tells Sigrid, quote, Ari locked her door, so I'm pretty sure that means alone time. He nodded to the door beside Ari's, but go ahead and take my room. Sigrid scoffed. I'm not some pup to be ordered about. I personally don't think Tharion is trying to be mean about the situation, but it's clear that Sigrid feels patronized. She feels like she's being forced to sit at the little kids' table at Thanksgiving dinner, and she's not here for that. Tharion, though he doesn't say it aloud, does reflect in his point of view that Sigrid slams the door behind her, quote, a little bit petulantly, which honestly just exaggerates that feeling of Sigrid being like a child because petulance is prescribed to children.
It's like good thing they don't sexualize her then.
Yeah, seriously.
I like the way that Lidia addresses these men. I mentioned it a little while ago, but Lydia is very formal, even when she asks for help, quote, but I require your help, Declan Emmett. It's a way of, I think, stripping them down as much as stripping herself down. It's very formal. It's her showing that she means business, and I think it puts them on edge because they are not used to formality like this.
I think that's such a great point. And I think what it also does is they know her as the Hind, as Lidia Cervos, the Hind of the Asteri, right? She's showing them, you know me just about as well as I know you, which is I know your name and I know what you're capable of. That doesn't mean anything about your morals or whether you're a good person. Insert sponsored subplot here. Now, Lidia, in having this discussion, because Ruhn's friends rightfully are a little skeptical, Lidia lets her mask slip. We see the pressure she's under from an outside point of view, specifically from Tharion's point of view, which I feel like humanizes her. Quote, her teeth flashed in a snarl, the first hint of a crack in that cool exterior. Everything I'm doing now has been to keep Ruhn alive. Do you know how hard it is to keep Pollux at bay? To convince him to go slow? Do you have any idea what that's like? She screamed to the last part at Flynn, who backed away a step. This is such a contrast to Lydia's own point of view, where she is so calm, collected, calculated, even when she begins to doubt herself. She's just like, nope, shut it down, got to keep moving forward. So on one hand, this doesn't seem very in character, but knowing what we know of her, Lidia has to fool herself into thinking that she is someone or something that she's not so that she can be as brutal as she has to be. So what does that mean? She's never honest with herself. She is doing some really hard shit and she has to lie to herself constantly. So we're never going to get the crack in her facade from her point of view.
This one's hitting me hard. I'm like, Lydia Summer. Lydia Summer.
I thought of you when I wrote this.
I'm like hitting her. I'm like, oh God. Yeah. Lydia. This could be a different type of cathartic. You got Bryce for your cathartic coming of self.
Yes.
Oh, my one brother, I'm getting Lydia.
I know. But mine was about trying to experience queer joy.
I know. You did. You got it. I don't know where mine's heading, but I don't know if it's heading to a Ruhn. What breaks her mask, though, is the idea of saving Ruhn, and that he is the thing that breaks it, right? The idea that they don't understand what she's going through in order to save him and what she needs to lock up in herself. And it hurts my heart because he doesn't deserve that from her.
Well, and the way she says it, I don't know why, but I feel like there is such a sexual implication.
Yeah.
Because Pollux gets off on hurting people, and to convince him to not be extreme, in my mind, implies he has to let off steam and cause pain somewhere else.
Yeah.
And she is not above offering her body to distract him.
We haven't seen it. But are you telling me Pollux, who is used to getting whatever the fuck he wants, whenever the fuck he wants, hasn't had sex with her since the beginning of this book? You think days haven't passed? You think that they haven't tortured Ruhn and then he's all high off of it and he goes upstairs and forces her to have sex? You think that, letting off steam, trying to distract him with it, trying to use her body every way that she can in order to save Ruhn, that she's having to have sex with her mate's abuser and torturer? Yeah, and yet no one wants to have an inch of empathy for her, except for Bryce. Now, at one point, Ethan tries to challenge Lidia. Quote, Holstrom said, the Viper Queen's apparently your drug dealer. Why don't you ask her to let Therian go? Lidia held his stare with a dominance that belied her dear shifter heritage. Why don't you, Ethan Holstrom? Again, she's using the first and last name. She is stripping them down in the moment with their name, with their title. I don't know if I was missing something there or is it just a well, why don't you do it kind of a thing, which it could be. But I just love challenging Ethan, and I think more people should.
Just in response, my assumption has always been she's read the dossier on each of these guys, and the Holstroms are known to be alphas who are second to the Fendirs. And so in my mind, she's implying do your own work.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it for you.
Yes.
Try.
Yep. And what I love about Lidia is that she's willing to apologize. She's willing to admit when she's been wrong. And at one point, she doesn't fully mock the Fae, or not the Fae, the sprites, but she kind of teases them. And, quote, to Therian's shock, Lidia inclined her head. Apologies. Your courage and loyalty are commendable. I wish I had 1,000 like you at my disposal. The boys could never. And it shows her character.
Yeah, it does.
I don't need a sip, do you?
No. Let's keep going.
People at home, you don't get one either. Let's continue. Chapter 11. We are back with Nesta and Bryce is looking at the walls once more. Quote, the strange carvings had continued all the way here, showing great fae battles and lovemaking and childbirth. I don't know. I do like moments of calling out motherhood and celebrating women because it's something that's often weaponized. So, yeah, happy when it's not.
Right. And it makes sense that it's celebrated because they were all created by a fae female. Now, Bryce and Nesta get to a point in the tunnels where the river is too wide and they can't jump from one bank to the next. At this point, Nesta and Bryce are talking, and Nesta mentions the High Fae, which are the Fae of the Prithian world. And Bryce asks, what are High Fae? How's that different from regular Fae? Quote, Nesta shrugged. They use the high part to make themselves sound more important than they are. Bryce's mouth twitched upward. This is another moment where Bryce and Nesta are sensing Oh, we kind of have the same opinions about things. Like, we both don't like the Fae. Okay, gotcha. But Bryce continues to allow her years of mistrusting the Fae get the better of her. Quote, Bryce surveyed her companion. If Nesta was originally human and had been turned Fae, maybe her sympathies still lay with humankind. Or maybe she'd been sent to win Bryce's sympathy and trust. Everything she'd said in these tunnels could have been a lie. So Bryce doesn't know which way to swing, right? She ultimately lets mistrust win. She assumes everyone is as awful and calculating as the Asteri, which, yes, sometimes Rhys is, but not in this case, arguably, which means Bryce does some reckless shit instead of communicating. And on one hand, I understand Nesta's her captor. The logic makes sense, but it is to Bryce's detriment.
Mm-hmm. Bryce debates telling Nesta about her power. Quote, for a heartbeat, Bryce debated telling Nesta how she obtained her depth of power, how she could get even more if someone fueled her up, just to let the warrior know she wasn't some loser who froze in the face of an enemy, giant worm or no. She wants Nesta to respect her. Bryce wants another woman, not a man, to respect her. And I get it. I would want Nesta to be proud of me too. Every little thing, I'd be like, Nesta, I did it. I did
Look
it,
at
Nesta.
me.
Are you proud of me? Nesta. Bryce, not making Nesta very proud, jumps into the water. It's flowing and Nesta goes and follows her. I don't have a quote specifically I want to read, but I do want to point out almost like a metaphor that's going on here, that both Nesta and Bryce get into this water. It's not baptismal, but it kind of strips them both down into a fresh start. And in some ways, the beginning of their friendship, because when they get out, things kind of relax a little bit. And I mean, there's still some betrayal that's about to happen. However, it does kind of mark a fresh start for me.
Well, and it does help that they finally reveal that Azriel's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And so literally they're washing away the lie of, Azriel being an observer from the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
We finally see the baby boys in the Asteri's dungeon again, and they're in literal shit. They've been dropped into their own excrement and blood, and they are forced to crawl through it if they want to consume food. Quote, the hawk had slid a tray of food toward them before he left, but kept it far enough away that they'd have to crawl through their piss and shit to get to it before the rats converged. Now, I'm going to dwell here maybe more than is comfortable for some people, because this is a special level of cruelty that honestly does make me wonder how much worse it was when SJM originally wrote it, because we know from an interview she was forced to cut a bunch out because her editor thought it was too much. So let's think of this all from the lens of power and just how degraded the men are in this scene, because it is important for the hilarity that ensues, but it's also tragic, the hilarity being Ruhn with his hand.
So fucking funny.
So these men have been chained up, tortured, forced to slowly heal with suppressed magic, and then do it all over again. This is making them feel weak on a physical level because they know they're capable of healing better, but they're not capable of it because of the Gorsian shackles. And they don't get to be like humans who aren't strong enough to do this, can't regenerate, and would therefore die. So they don't even get the release of death, which sucks for them. If that were not enough, they are also forced to endure the shame and disgust of lying in their own piss, shit, and blood. Quite frankly, if I was in that situation and someone came to save me, I wouldn't want to go with them because I'd be like, you shouldn't have to endure this. You shouldn't have to smell this.
I have thoughts on that real fast. They've been in here for what? We could call it 4 days, let's say. You and I have gone much longer without pooping. All right. I'm just saying that I have full faith in our constipation to at least only have our own blood and piss to go through.
The only thing I will say to that, because in theory they haven't consumed enough to shit themselves, they have been disemboweled. Yeah. And if their intestines have been cut open, anything that's in there would arguably fall out.
Colonic. Oh, sounds lovely. Would love to not have any shit in me. That would be, it's all about looking on the bright side.
Anyway, and that's how I explain the shit.
Yeah, okay.
On top of all of this, if food is power, their food is contaminated. It is like it's being splashed with everything that's around it as the tray is dragged across the floor, and they have to try and get to it before the rats do. So this is also a type of humiliation that like you wanted to like lie still and try not to get every part of you covered in this. Well, tough shit. If you want to eat, you do have to touch. Everything has to be touched. You are risking infection everywhere. Nothing is safe. Yeah. It's just the physical, mental, emotional. This is all like all the levels of torture, psychological, every type of degrading that you can think of.
I don't know if it's because like we don't get extreme detail, but it's just a little funny to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm so busy being mad at Ruhn this entire time, but like even because, he talks a little bit. We don't have what he says here, but part of his tongue's missing. Or that kind of means that he's talking like this.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Like he's like, talk to your girlfriend. I don't want to talk to her. Where it's like, okay, well, fuck you, Ruhn.
Yeah, and all of this is supposed to show just how shitty, pun intended, Ruhn is being right now by refusing to talk to Lidia. Like, he is willing to crawl through shit and eat shit rather than talk to Lidia. Quote, he'd rather die here than beg the Hind for help. The Hind, he uses her title. She is still not human in his mind. And so, despite torture, disembowelment, dismemberment, Ruhn is unwilling to help himself and his friends by doing the simple thing, which is talk to Lidia.
I think that's why I just don't have any sympathy for him, is because if it was just him being tortured and him being stubborn, that's one thing. But he says that he would rather die when it's like, oh, you mean you'd rather let your friends die? But at the same time, we have like this moment here, quote, if Ruhn got free, Pollux would be the first asshole he ended. He didn't dwell on why, didn't dwell on the rage that coursed through him whenever he saw the white-winged angel. Okay, he's just too honorable, really, to think about it. It's too stubborn and honorable to think why that he's in love with Lidia and that he would. Anyway, continue.
So I think we can all agree Ruhn is a dumb brat. I do think SJM realizes how unredeemable his stubbornness or his honor is right now. And so she has to balance that with something that makes us empathize. So while he is not willing to help him or his friends by talking to Lidia, which is stupid, we do see that his feelings for Hunt and his motivations for Hunt's survival, are genuine. And it's not justified that he doesn't talk to Lidia, but I remember being very, very moved by Ruhn's feelings for Hunt. What am I talking about? Ruhn refuses to share his worries about Bryce and the prophecy of Ruhn's fate and how that might impact Bryce with Hunt. Remember, Ruhn has not revealed to anybody the truth of the Oracle's prophecy about him, that he will be the end of his royal bloodline. Quote, he couldn't share his suspicions with Athalar, couldn't offer up that bit of despair that would break the Umbra Mortis worse than any of Pollux's tools. The use of the Umbra Mortis to describe Hunt is important here. Even the deadly, unfeeling Umbra Mortis could not survive Bryce's potential death. The thought of Bryce's potential death would break that deadly, unfeeling Umbra Mortis. The mask of the Umbra Mortis, could not save Hunt from that truth. And Ruhn even recognizes, quote, guilt was likely eating Athalar alive. Guilt that wasn't his to bear. They'd all made choices that had landed them here. But the words were too heavy, too painful for Ruhn to voice, partly because he's a coward and won't talk to Lidia. Ultimately, though, Ruhn does really care for Hunt because Hunt is an extension of his sister. He knows what Hunt is thinking. He knows Hunt is taking the blame, and he doesn't want Hunt to feel that way. Granted, he doesn't go that extra step to try and tell Hunt to, not think that way, but he does try to reassure Hunt that Hunt is not alone this time in the dungeon, unlike his last stint. Ruhn is relieved at the feeling that comes back to Hunt's gaze. Quote, something glimmered in Athalar's eyes. Gratitude, maybe. Much better than what had been there moments ago. It sharpened Ruhn's focus, cleared the pain-fogged bits of his brain. This might be a one-way ticket for him, but it didn't have to be for Hunt. Okay, I know Ruhn is not willing to do everything possible to save Hunt, but the stupid things he does do are informed by his desire for Hunt and Bryce to live happily together and get out of this mess. And that's the only redeeming thing about him right now.
I do think it's annoying that Hunt doesn't push him more on Lidia.
Yeah, I agree, but I think at the same time, there's this weird level of empathy because Hunt gets pissed when Bryce keeps secrets from him.
Yeah.
And this level of secret between Lidia and Ruhn is like 15 million times more intense.
All these men.
I know.
We are now in chapter 12, and Az is with Nesta and Bryce. And Nesta saying that Azriel's been put out because Bryce's stars beat his shadow. And Azriel says, quote, "Seeing you go into that freezing river helped," Azriel said mildly, and Bryce could have sworn she caught a hint of a smile gracing his beautiful face. Funny, Azriel's going to destroy me. I'm doomed. I am a doomed person. And Nesta starts to explain a little bit more of the Prithian world, and she says, quote, "Half," Nesta corrected, "half High Fae, half Illyrian." Azriel cleared his throat, as if to warn her to stop talking so much, and Nesta added sharply, "And with the combined arrogance of both." Azriel really cleared his throat then, and Bryce couldn't help her smile despite her clacking teeth. This is pure drugs to me. This is the moment that every person in the fandom wanted, right? Like, they're joking around, they're funny, we're getting personality from Azriel, more personality than we've had in some books from him. This is the pure shit that we want.
Yeah, I hope we get more of it. I have more to say about this chapter in the breadcrumbs than I do here. There's only two things I want to point out. First is we continue to see glimpses of the art on the tunnel walls throughout this chapter, which all is going to foreshadow Celine's story that we will learn soon, aka, I think, in our next episode, maybe the one after. Second, Nesta asks what the art means because Bryce is like, well, art is a universal language. You don't have to know the culture or the history to be able to interpret it. And Bryce's interpretation is that there was once joy in these lands. Quote, "Bryce kept her eyes on the dancers, the stars, the lush lands, ignored the darkness beneath, focused on the good, always the good." It's really important, but also angsty that we're seeing this right now because it is the opposite of where Hunt is. This is SJM's brand of angst. She doesn't like misunderstandings per se that are, I think, common and tropey in a lot of books. Her version of angst is one partner really spiraling into despair while the other is doing their best to keep the hope alive and them not being aligned on that. And we're seeing that here now.
Yeah. When Azriel and Nesta start to question Bryce about her hand bleeding and yet it's not healing, but then her knees are healing, and Azriel is just like, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. And Bryce recognizes that Azriel has scarred hands, and so she interrupts their pondering of what's going on with her hands with, quote, "The male who fathered me, he used to burn my brother to punish him. The scars never healed for him either." Bryce is compassionate, yes. However, she needed to shift the conversation away from her lack of healing, so might as well go straight for the trauma.
Yeah.
It's a very Bryce-like move where, yeah, she is compassionate, and it will be something that would, haunt her and she'd think about, but she's going to use it at the most convenient time for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I always used to read this scene as Bryce trying to connect with Azriel to gain trust with him. And then this time when I was reading it, I was like, oh, she's deflecting. She's weaponizing her empathy right now.
Yeah, I mean, and it works on both Azriel and on Nesta. Because, quote, "The female said a shade quietly, 'I'm sorry about your brother's suffering.' The words steadied Bryce, focused her. 'I'll make sure my sire pays for it one day.' Good," was all Nesta said. Good. Now, why does it have to steady her to focus her? Because I think she knew exactly what the fuck she was doing. She was emotionally manipulating Azriel while still truly being empathetic. And I also love that this is a sign of character growth from Nesta that we have yet to see because we haven't seen her since Silver Flames. And, is that something that pre-Silver Flames Nesta would have said to someone?
No.
Not at all.
No.
And then finally, Nesta asks Bryce about the Asteri, quote, "So what's the difference between you and them?" Nesta asked. I feel like this is a moral question that every person should be asking themselves, particularly now with their government and their government's choices. What is the difference between you and them? And the difference is that we should be fighting back, which is what Bryce is doing. But I think it's a great moral dilemma question that Bryce kind of spirals into, where she's like, okay, well, what's the difference between my light and their light? And she eventually comes to the answer with that, but it is a question that I think every person should ask.
She definitely had a moment of moral panic.
Yeah.
Of just like, that's a tricky question.
Yeah.
I just know I'm right, guys. All right, Jack. Our question before we wrap up the episode. All of our characters are struggling hardcore or in some sort of terrible situation. Out of all of the ones that we've discussed today, which has SJM made us personally empathize with most and or least?
Currently, for me, personally, Lidia. But I don't think that's just because of like the me issues of it. I think there's been a lot of time around Lidia. I think that SJM has been spending a lot of time on the women, the main women. I'm not going to include Sigrid or Ari in there because although I do think that, you know, we are sympathetic to them, I think Nesta and Bryce were very sympathetic to them, Lidia especially. And then we have, right, Hunt and Ruhn and like, you know, the torture boys. But even then, like, I think there's still moments of like, why isn't Ruhn trying? Why aren't they doing other things to try to help get themselves out? So there's sympathy there, but I think that there's just more questions of like, why is there more they could be doing? But yeah, for me personally, I think it's Lidia. And I think that's because Lydia's the only character that we don't have a history with. We knew her a little bit as Agent Daybright, but we don't know Lidia. So I feel like she has to put all of her sympathizing magic behind her in order for us to catch up to this character that's now a predominant point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a logistical standpoint, you're spot on. And I love Lidia, and I love every scene that we get from Lydia's point of view. I think she's a fantastic character. I think SJM really showed what she's capable of when she wrote Lidia. I think I personally, even though SJM hasn't necessarily done the work, I personally feel maybe the most empathy for Baxian.
I was thinking that. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, he's getting tortured worse than Ruhn and Hunt because Pollux and the Hawk are, you know, focused on him. And, you know, he didn't have to choose this, but he did it anyway. And he's sticking to his guns. And
for
you know
a mate
what?
that he didn't even spend tons of time with.
Yeah. Yeah. And her friends.
Yeah.
Her one friend, technically, because it's not like Danica knew Hunt. And Danica didn't like Ruhn. So, yeah. Poor Baxian, first of all. Who do I sympathize with the least?
Ethan.
Definitely Ethan.
Yeah.
Although Flynn is pissing me off a lot. Actually, he pisses me off a lot in this book.
At least it's like right now, Flynn pisses me off, but like he is worried about Ruhn. So like at least his priorities are right. Ethan being worried about Therian, I'm just like, oh my God, get over your brother issues. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Which is a dick thing of me to say. I know. Someone's like, wow, Jack, that wasn't nice. I'm going to leave a Spotify review. My mom's in the hospital. Remember that. Before you do, leave that review. Okay. Some of us are feeling spicy.
All right. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us tomorrow for our breadcrumbs and broomsticks discussion of today's chapters from Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Only if they're nice words, though. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini-episode or in a Patreon-exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Bye.
Bye. There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Drybar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FromRebel.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince that's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
Nice to meet you. I'm Erin Sky Kelly.
I'm Carrie Blakeney.
And we host the podcast called Get the Hell Out of Debt.
As soon as you say the word debt, I think you just scared people away. We're not scary, everybody. We're fun.
We discuss relationships and life, but mostly money, in order to help you get the hell out of debt. You're going to hear from us, you're going to hear from experts, but most importantly, you're going to hear from you, people just like you who've gotten completely debt-free or become financially free simply by following a very easy system.
Right here where you found this podcast, look for us, Get the Hell Out of Debt.